Okay, well, let's get started. So my name is Sheena Fitzpatrick. I'm the Community Engagement Director for Life in the Heartland. And I just want to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us over your lunch hour today. Before we begin, I'd like to take the opportunity to acknowledge the traditional territories of the Indigenous peoples of the Treaty 6 region and the Métis Nation of Alberta, Regions 2, 3, and 4, the land upon which we live, work, and play. We respect the truth, languages, and cultures of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit, and we would like to pay respect to all the Indigenous peoples who have cared for this land for generations. Life in the Heartland's goal is to bring residents and municipalities together with industry so that you can be more informed about what is happening in your community. Today's webinar is another example of the many ways Life in the Heartland helps keep you connected and engaged with local industry. Questions will be answered at the end of all three presentations today. So if you have a question for one of our speakers, please submit your question using the Q&A function, the chat box that you'll see on your screen, and also indicate the speaker, the company for whom your question is needing to be answered by. And like I said, we'll get to those at the end of the presentations. So let's get started. I'd like to introduce our first presenter, Heartland Air Monitoring Partnerships Executive Director, Nadine Blaney.
Thanks, Sheena. I'm just going to share my screen here. All right. Thank you, Sheena, and thank you to Life in the Heartland for giving me time on your agenda today to present to you some information about an air quality trending and comparison report that we released in November of 2024. So this is the second edition of this report. The first was completed in 2019, and we're hoping to update these on a 5-year cycle. So before I get into the report details, I do want to take a minute to give you some brief details about Heartland Air Monitoring Partnership. As some of you may know, we recently changed our name from Fort Air Partnership to Heartland Air Monitoring Partnership, and that is to better reflect the area in which we operate, which is the industrial heartland area and surrounding communities. I did want to also mention that we've been in operation since 2000, so this year marks our 25th anniversary, so we're pretty excited about that. So as you can see from the map, we operate 10 continuous monitoring stations, and these monitor for 18 different substances and weather conditions 24/7. So those are indicated by the yellow circles on the map. We also operate 16 passive monitoring sites, and those measure for hydrogen sulfide and sulfur dioxide and provide us with monthly averages. And those are indicated by the orange diamonds. And then we've also recently started adding purple air sensors to the network. And these monitor for fine particulate matter. We're locating those in areas that don't currently have continuous air monitoring stations, as well as offering them to schools for educational purposes. So these come in quite handy during wildfire season when we see increased levels of PM 2.5. So the report is quite lengthy, so I'm going to touch on some high-level points during this presentation, but if you are interested in seeing the entire report, it is posted on our website. So basically, we focused on 5 different substances for this report, including fine particulate matter, ozone, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, and carbon monoxide. And these were selected because they are considered criteria air contaminants by the federal government. And they're also, with the exception of carbon monoxide, the rest are also all used in calculating the Air Quality Health Index, which is a general measure of air quality as it pertains to human health. So we looked at trends and comparisons within the HAMP airshed, and then between Fort Saskatchewan and selected Alberta national and international locations. And these locations were chosen to provide a wide variety of population size, industrial density, as well as some just for general interest. And all were pre-chosen without prejudice for how Fort Saskatchewan would compare. So many of the trends show notable changes that can be tied to events like wildfires. Some show changes over a longer period of time because of new environmental policies and technologies that were introduced. So starting with fine particulate matter, also known as PM 2.5. because of its size. So it's less 2.5 microns and less in diameter. For comparison, a human hair is about 70 microns in width. So these are very small particles that can travel into people's lungs, and at high concentrations can lead to health issues, especially for those with pre-existing respiratory or cardiovascular conditions. It's also a primary component in the calculation of the Air Quality Health Index. So sources of fine particulate matter include roads, dust, vehicle emissions, industrial emissions, wildfires, and home heating. And you can see from the chart here that we have peaks in 2010, 2018, and 2023, and those were all due to increased wildfire activity during those years. We also have an effect in this region from wintertime temperature inversions. And so that happens when there is a warm layer of air that traps cold air at ground level and effectively traps pollutants at ground level. So you see increases in a number of pollutants, including PM 2.5. And our Elk Island station, as you can see, tends to trend the lowest. And this is because it is the furthest removed from emission sources in our region. Provincially, then, you can see the same peaks for those 3 years due to wildfire smoke that affected the entire province. As well, you can see a significant peak in 2016 for Fort McMurray, and that was due to the massive wildfire that occurred there that year. Fort Saskatchewan tends to trend in the middle when looking at the rest of the province until about 2017 when it begins to trend a bit higher. And then Lethbridge tends to trend the lowest of the stations that we included in the comparison. Ozone is known as a secondary pollutant. It's not emitted by anything per se. It is formed through volatile organic compounds and oxides of nitrogen combining in the presence of sunlight. So we tend in areas such as ours where we have smaller communities, we tend to see higher annual average concentrations in rural areas versus the urban areas. And that's because there is more vegetation in the rural areas, and vegetation emits volatile organic compounds that then leads to the formation of ozone. At the same time, urban areas can experience ozone scavenging. And so when there's combustion of fossil fuels, there's the production of nitric oxide, which then can scavenge the ozone and lead to less ozone formation. So what you're seeing in the chart then are our two most rural locations, being Elk Island and Lamont County, tend to see the highest annual averages, and Fort Saskatchewan, which is our most urban location, tends to see the lowest. Compared provincially, Fort Saskatchewan shows consistently higher annual averages than the larger urban centers, such as Edmonton or Calgary, which is to be expected because of the increased ozone scavenging in the larger centers. And then Lethbridge is quite a bit higher than the rest of the stations, and they do experience warmer mean temperatures, which can result in higher ozone levels as well. Sulfur dioxide is primarily from industrial sources. We do see a significant decreasing trend across Canada, actually, in the past 30 years, and this is mostly due to decreased sulfur content in gasoline and diesel, as well as improved emission controls and decreased flaring from oil and gas wells. And then I would mention that there is an annual Alberta ambient air quality objective in place for sulfur dioxide at 8 ppb. And so for any of the years that we have been monitoring for SO2 in this region, we have been well below that level. Provincially, we are comparable to other locations, kind of in the mid-range. Lethbridge and Red Deer definitely experience the lowest levels of SO2, and that's possibly due to less oil and gas development in those areas. Nitrogen dioxide is it's a reddish brown gas that is responsible for some of that brownish haze that you can see over larger cities, especially in warmer weather. Its sources are transportation, industrial emissions, home heating, and wildfires. NO2 also continues to trend downward, and this is likely due to increased efficiencies in home heating and vehicles. Fort Saskatchewan trends the highest out of our HAMP stations, and that's because there's a larger number of NO2 sources in the vicinity of that station. Provincially, we're again in the mid-range, as would be expected. Calgary and Edmonton have the highest annual averages because they have a greater number of emission sources. Carbon monoxide is its source is primarily vehicles. When there's incomplete combustion of fuels such as gasoline, oil, wood, you get a product of carbon monoxide. And then wildfire smoke is also a natural source of carbon monoxide. So Fort Saskatchewan is the only station in our airshed that monitors for carbon monoxide. So there's no other stations for comparison within our airshed, but you definitely see a downward trend, mainly due to more efficient and cleaner emissions technologies in the vehicles over the years. I would mention, though, that there is a slight increasing trend from 2017 to 2023, and we're thinking that that is because of the increased wildfire activity during those years. Provincially, you can see a similar downward trend for the rest of the province. Larger urban areas tend to trend higher, such as Calgary and Edmonton, more vehicle traffic. And also, you do see the same slight increasing trend from 2017 onwards, likely because of the wildfires. So I don't have time today to go into the national and international comparison charts, but you can definitely look at those in the report. Fort Saskatchewan was again selected as being representative of the airshed. And when we look at ozone, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, and carbon monoxide levels, they're all about in the mid-range when compared to the other locations. And fine particulate matter is actually in the lower half of the range. But details can be available or are available in the report. Can be found through this link. I believe Sheena is sharing the slides after this webinar, so you can access it there. And if you're interested in learning more about our organization, you can visit our website. We have a live data feed, so you can access data in real time. You can sign up for our e-newsletter that comes up probably every 2 months or so. We also have Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram accounts. And if you're interested in accessing AQHI for your specific location, you can download the WeatherCan app as well. And please feel free to contact me anytime if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Nadine. Our next presentation is courtesy of Corey Wald, Manager EHS&S for Nutrien Fort Saskatchewan.
Hello, hello. Hi, everybody. Just give me a second here to get everything set up. Ooh. I should have planned that one better. There we go. Then I guess I should share something with everybody. Okay, Sheena, how's that looking over there?
No slide.
No slide? Oh, I have to click the share button. That would probably help.
There you go.
There we go. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. And yes, thanks for joining us through your lunchtime. So this presentation will be a little bit different than the one you just saw, and probably than the one you're going to see, because I'm a bit of a rebel and I kind of do my own thing. So I don't follow instructions very well sometimes. Anyway, we'll just jump right into it. Much like our previous presenter, we have undergone a name change. Now, it's been quite a while for those of you who follow who's who in the fertilizer industry. But we still get a lot of questions, or we still get referred to kind of some of our old company names. So I thought I'd just start with a quick little slide about who the heck is Nutrien, right? Like, who are these guys? Where do they come from? So here's a bit of a timeline. And for this facility, which again is in Fort Saskatchewan, you have to go back to 1983. At that time, Sherritt Gordon Mines actually owned the entire property. They had the metals facility out front, and they were in the process of commissioning, which was at the time a world-class nitrogen facility, which still has leading efficiency and reliability to this day. That's the plant I work at today. But in 83, it was built by Sherritt Gordon. 10 years later, Sherritt I think I missed a few words there. Sherritt International was formed, and Sherritt Incorporated actually operated all the fertilizer assets. Okay, so there was a bit of a shift. And those of you who've been around for a while, you know that there's been a lot of puts and takes with, who owns what on this Sherritt property. So anyway, we moved past that into 1996 when Viridian comes to life. Viridian was a wholly owned subsidiary of Sherritt Incorporated, and they took possession of all of the fertilizer assets, so kind of separated from the mining portion. And there was some political reasons and some business reasons for that, but they formed Viridian. Fort Saskatchewan, as I'm told, I wasn't around for this time, was supposed to be Viridian World Headquarters. That's what got us this beautiful site services building that I'm sitting in today, which you can't see because of the background. But that was all Viridian, which was kind of a continuance of Sherritt. Now, what that did was in 1996, later in the year, it set it up quite well for Agrium Inc. to come along and acquire the Viridian assets. Now, the interesting part of that story is that Agrium Inc. actually came out of Cominco Mining, who back in the day would have been a direct competitor of Sherritt Gordon Mines. So it's, we've called it different things over the years. We've called it mergers. We've called it, trading of assets. But really, it was kind of two competitors sort of negotiating this sale of certain assets. So Agrium came to town in 1996. We flew that flag until 2018, quite successfully. And in 2018, Agrium, which was primarily a nitrogen producer, merged with PCS, which is the publicly traded company that was formed out of the Potash Corp of Saskatchewan. That was the government-owned company. When they went publicly traded in the 80s or 90s, they rebranded it PCS. And here we are, seven years later. We are now known as Nutrien, no T at the end, but it's still the same old place that you've always known and loved, just sitting here in the banks of the North Saskatchewan in behind Sherritt. And the combined assets, Nutrien total, with that merger, we're one of the largest suppliers of all three main lines of fertilizer, which is nitrogen, phosphate, and potassium. You'd know that as potash, urea, and phosphate is kind of phosphate. So that's who we are today. If you're wondering like what's our footprint, well, here we are. Just kind of a high level view. You can see our friends next door at Dow over on the left. You can see Sherritt, of course, which is still around. They operate this kind of horseshoe-shaped chunk in the middle of this property, and a few of the little pieces that actually are within our boundaries. And then Agrium, aka now Nutrien, actually got most of the property to manage. So we're over here up against our residential neighbors. If there's any of you out listening today, hello neighbors. Kind of down to the riverbank and all the way along 119th Street. So that's who we are today. Excuse me. And if you haven't been down here, this is actually our administration building, which was again, I'm told, supposed to be Viridian World Headquarters. So that's who we are. Yeah, so what's been going on? If you're doing some quick math out there, you're going 1983, they commissioned the plant, so that must mean that you must have had a 40th anniversary recently. So back in 2023, we did celebrate 40 years of operating this facility. It's quite a milestone in any business. I guess compared to some in our area, we're still pretty young, kind of the new kid on the block, so to speak, but pretty substantial milestone for us. And, we're looking forward to doing another 40 years. We don't plan on going anywhere. I don't know if it was because we achieved our 40th anniversary or just because they like us so much. But in 2023, we were also awarded the Industrial Business Award from the Chamber of Commerce. So that was quite fun. I wasn't able to attend that event. Some of you may know our folks here. This is Jennifer Mercer and Shelley Carter Schofield, who went and attended the event and received the trophy, and then admonished me for not telling them that there was a speech later, which I wasn't aware of. So I've said it to them personally. I'll say it publicly. Thanks for stepping in. But yeah, that's always exciting to get recognized by some of our local folks. And also in 2023, so you can see here, 2023 was a big year. We had our largest turnaround in the site's history. Okay, so again, keep in mind what you see here. This is, well, you can see a couple big cranes set up, and in the middle is what we call our primary reformer. I won't get into the technical details, but this is where we reform natural gas to start making ammonia. This had been put together and started up in 1983. And again, it's hard to tell from this picture because it's kind of small on the screen, but we basically took most of this structure apart, replaced a lot of the parts, put in some new materials, some new catalyst, and then put it back together. And we had a lot of sheriff folks who still just work across the fence from us actually come over to have a look because it had been 40 years since they saw this primary reformer and those adjacent pieces of equipment stripped down that far. So it's kind of nostalgic for them to come over, and we'd invite them over and have some lunch and kind of reminisce a little bit. Again, I wasn't there 40 years ago, but it was a big event. The good news is we shouldn't have to do that for another 40 years, that scale, because it was a bit stressful. Kind of 80 days with just under 2,000 people every 24 hours coming through our site. And I'm sure we probably affected some of our neighbors with some of the traffic and stuff. So we tried not to, but just something that you got to do, right? Reinvest in the plants to keep them safe and reliable. So yeah, 2023 was a big year. Also in 2023, we got to stage kind of 4 of some of our reclamation projects, and I know I've presented this at other webinars and things, so I won't spend a lot of time on it. But basically, if you look at the picture on the left, this was one of the historical ponds and phos gyp stacks that Agrium and Nutrien inherited through the mergers and acquisitions. And on the right is about midsummer 2023. You can see the big pond is gone. You can see the elevation, the hill's been cut down. And that green back there is 30,000 hybrid poplar trees that don't drop any fuzz. And we've got 4 gyp stacks that we've actually done this to. So my environmental scientist, my PhD scientist, Connie Nickel, who's in this picture that says 2019, has been pioneering, well, not pioneering, but she's been proving out this concept of planting trees as a valid way to reclaim gyp stacks, working with the federal government and some forestry people. We have them out here periodically, University of Alberta. So we've got a lot of interest in this research because it seems to be quite a viable way to do some of these things. So it's really her brainchild that we have to thank for that. But if you've gone past our plant in recent years, you may have noticed some changes to those, what were formerly gyp stacks. They're now beautiful forests. So just a couple pictures there. You can see Connie in 2019. This was one of the first ones that we did. And then a year later, that's how much those trees grew up, with a couple other folks standing in front of them. So quite proud of that. It's been really fun to see that progress. Okay, then just a few notes about community outreach. Of course, part of what we do is we want to support our community and some of the large places. So direct funding for the folks you see on the screen here, people, organizations like Fort Food Bank, the high school food programs, Next Step Outreach. You see a few schools, St. John Paul, St. Andrew Bissett, some Chamber of Commerce collaborations. You might have seen us at the farmers market doing the corn roast. I think Joelle worked with the Chamber last year to get a cookbook out. We do sponsor the Canada Day face painting with the city of Fort Sask. 4-H Equine Leaders Conference, some minor sport association involvement, youth basketball, ring at Fort Sask High School, volunteer programs for employees, and of course, who could forget the Nutrien soccer field, which is under the name of our neighbors, Dow. So that's kind of some direct things. I know it's a lot of words. I didn't want to spend a lot of time on it, but there are some really cool things that we also support on a larger scale, which I'm hoping people are maybe taking some notes because there's some resources here you might want to get involved in if you're kind of teaching or kind of in that uh, window. One of the things that Nutrien, formerly Agrium, and Nutrien still supports is the Seed Survivor portable classrooms. There are 6, perhaps 8 of them now that travel around North America. And if you go to the Nutrien.com website, you can navigate your way to Seed Survivor or just Google Seed Survivor. They have their own website. And you can request these things to come to your schools, to your education events, open houses, trade shows. And it's exactly what you think. You can see by the pictures is that we educate children on, the importance of how to grow food and how things grow and why things grow. So of course there's a tie into nutrients because that's part of the business. But the Seed Survivor is a portable education classroom if you're interested. It's pretty cool. They do a great job. They've done a good job of setting these things up, and the kids get to go in and plant seeds and grow plants. Of course that doesn't all happen in one day, but I encourage you to have a look at that if that interests you. Seed Survivor, that's one. And Nutrien is also the primary sponsor for a program called Caring for Our Watersheds. It's an annual event where middle school and high school children can submit ideas uh, that they have to improve conditions and conserve our water and our wetlands, and it's really a cool program. The picture you see on the right, I can't remember what year that was, but typically in May we go down and we have the top 10 contestants or the groups present their ideas at the Reynolds Museum down in Wetaskiwin. So it's a great day. The kids get out there, they're able to present stuff and get some awards. There's a cash award for places 1 through 10, and then they get to go out and do their projects. And it's really great. It really inspires the young minds to see what is possible, and it's really quite fun. So again, if you're kind of in that, if you have people that are in teaching mode or teachers out there, I encourage you to look up Seed Survivor and Caring for Watersheds, kind of the corporately sponsored programs. But it's really a good experience. It really is. And then last, I would be remiss. My CEO, who's in the middle there, would probably chastise me if I didn't mention that Nutrien did just give a quite substantial donation to the University of Saskatchewan. I know it's not Alberta, but we do support NAIT and MacEwan trades programs as well. But Nutrien did just make a big donation to the University of Saskatchewan for agriculture and sustainability. So if you want to look that up, I'm sure you can find that quite easy with a Google search. And last is a business update. 2025 really should be just kind of a quiet year. We did a lot of stuff in 2023, as you've seen. We really don't have any major outages planned. We're really just kind of in operation mode this year. Get some training done, get our emergency response program, get some training and practice with the City of Fort Saskatchewan Fire Department and some of our other municipal partners. And really, that's it. Just kind of maintain business as usual. We had a good year last year. We're looking for another one this year. So, and I'll just stop there. My timer went off. But yeah, if you want any other information, please navigate to the www.nutrien.com and click on it. See what you can find.
All right. Thanks for the update, Corey.
You're welcome.
Great. I'd like to turn it over to our next presenters. We have Jess McDonald, Dow's Community Relations Manager, and Ryan Wayland, Supply Integration and Project Director for Dow.
Hi, everyone. As Jess is getting that up, I'll just do a little further intro myself. My role is our Path to Zero integration leader on site. Is a little bit more detailed description than Sheena gave. And what that is really is I'm our leadership representative at the site. I've been on site for 20 years, and I am the liaison focal point between the site at Fort Saskatchewan and this project that we're going to talk a little bit more about. I've got the first number of slides, and then we'll turn it over to Jess as we get to some of the key community pieces. So thanks for having me. And if you want to roll to the next one, Jess. Here's our standard legal slide to kind of keep me in good space. So we can go to the next one too. And just a little bit about us. At the highest of levels, we employ about 36,000 people. We operate in 31 different countries with manufacturing sites like we have in Fort Saskatchewan, and globally we do 45 billion in sales as of 2023. So large multinational company. And if you want to scroll to the next one, we get to a little bit more of a geographical footprint on this slide, and outlining where all of our operations are and focusing in a little bit on Alberta. So we've got our obviously our Fort Saskatchewan site. We began in the fort in 1961. We've got a site in Prentice, which is just outside Red Deer Black Falls area, and then our Dow Canada headquarters is in Calgary. So just as we show these couple slides, I mean, one thing we would like to highlight would be, we feel we have a good brand of safe operations in the Fort Saskatchewan site. We plan to continue that as we go and construct our project, and then beyond, once we are operating both what we have today plus this new stuff we plan to build, and we'll talk a little more about that. One point that we're quite proud of is we're a founding member of Responsible Care in Canada. And that's a code of ethics for those who aren't aware of just kind of looking at, cradle to grave, so to speak, of our products and the sustainability of them and that type of thing. So if you want to go to the next one, Jess. And as we kind of roll into our project here, these next few slides talk a little bit about our project. And really, we'll start with, net zero. And net zero is this term you may have heard. It's about CO2 and carbon footprint. Our company, much like a lot of the geographies and in the globe, has a goal to be net zero by 2050. So our Path to Zero project in Fort Saskatchewan is really one of the first steps. So it's really about decarbonizing and growing. So we plan to both decarbonize existing assets, the new assets, and grow our production. We really believe that it's a condition of doing business in the petrochemical landscape on Earth moving forward, and it aligns with Canada's goals, a lot of the international protocols that have been signed that are aiming towards various industries being net zero by 2050. And as much as when we talk about Path to Zero, we being employees from the site, you'll probably hear things like Path to Zero. It's really Fort Saskatchewan Path to Zero, because after we're done doing our Fort Saskatchewan Path to Zero program, we'll plan to go and do net zero projects in other locations that we showed a few slides ago. And really, we expect we'll get better at them. We'll be able to do them more quickly in parallel to really achieve that 2050. So if you want to go to the next one. So why are we in the industrial heartland? I mean, Corey talked about a lot of the history with Agrium and Nutrien, and it's very similar for us. One of the key reasons is we've got a significant feedstock raw material advantage. There's infrastructure in the area. The picture shows the rail lines. Yeah, we've got rail out to Vancouver. We've got rail that's been growing significantly to Prince Rupert, as well as we've got rail going out east. Being landlocked is some level of disadvantage, but we have really good infrastructure that allows us to get our products to other markets. We certainly have the climate for government support. And Jess is going to talk a little bit about community integrated relations, and I would add my comment on that would be, the area we are in, the Heartland area, is a business friendly area. The city of Fort Saskatchewan, the adjacent communities. I live in Strathcona County. Anyone we're talking to, whether they be councillors or mayors, are certainly favorable towards the economy growing in the area, and that's one of the key advantages of our project. So if you want to go to the next one. So one thing to maybe just highlight about our project, it's really a suite of projects, and each of these pictures is kind of showing a significant project in itself. We use this term called a cracker. Our name of the operating facility internally is FS2, but it's a new ethylene cracker we plan to build. We have a significant project to retrofit the existing cracker, so the existing ethylene plant. We have significant third-party build, own, operate projects that are within the suite of projects. So air separation units, the hydrogen plants that will enable us to get to, that net zero, nitrogen production that we need in our various processing facilities. These are going to be done by the companies that do them the best, and we're partnering with them, bringing them onto our site to build their own assets on our site. We have a cogen power facility, part of which is reaching kind of an end of life, and we need to, replace those pieces of that asset. So we're looking to partner with someone on that as well. And another set of in-house projects, which again are separate, but there'll be Dow projects, are our polyethylene assets. So we have one that will be, we call it solution polyethylene. That's just a label on the technology to make the polyethylene. And then another is gas phase polyethylene. So, just as you can see, the key Dow owned projects are the two around the cracker, both the new assets, the existing, and then the new polyethylene assets. And last but not least, as much as we've got great third-party infrastructure, we also have some third-party logistics that will kind of connect to that rail, load our product, this type of thing. Yeah, sorry, Jesse, you can go to the next one now. So this is a footprint of our site. Just to orient folks, the road kind of running, from left to right, kind of on the bottom is Highway 15. North is generally up on the drawing. The light gray boxes are existing assets. So numbers 7, 8, 9, 6, 16, 13, these are existing assets. And then the dark blue assets are new third-party assets. So new assets that some of those third-party partners will be building. And then the red assets are going to be new Dow-owned assets. So if you want to go to the next slide, Jess. And this is just a picture that kind of shows a couple key construction areas for us. So the one on the left, you see in the background is our existing ethylene plant, our cracker. It's the farthest east on the site. If you're driving from Fort Saskatchewan to Lamont, you'll see that cracker, the furnaces on the left there. You'll see that from the road. of course, we're retrofitting that one to make it net zero. And then in the foreground, you see the construction of the new cracker covered in snow, but you see some piling happening off to the left where the furnaces will be. And we're doing a lot of the groundwork there. And then if we shift to the right picture there, we get a little bit south of the area shown in the left picture, closer to Highway 15. We're building two new buildings there. The one on the upper left of the picture is a new warehouse to be able to support all of our operations on site. And then the one on the kind of the bottom center that's shaped like a diamond will be our new office building, a 2-story office building there that we're looking to build. So go to the next one, Jess.
Yeah, and so the next one is a glimpse into that warehouse that
Yes. Okay.
in the upper left. So we'll give you a glimpse inside and show some of the employees who are working on the project.
MRO stands for maintain, repair, and operations, right? So this is essentially a warehouse that houses all of the material that our plants could or would need to maintain and repair their equipment to make sure that the plants get what they need in a timely manner, in a safe manner, and they're up and running. We're literally living in the future with this building here, right? Over there, you'll see what's called the vertical lift module. It's essentially a fancy vending machine. We'll put all of our smaller parts into those VLMs. With a punch of a button, with a few clicks, you can get the part that you're looking for. It'll bring it down for you. It'll point to where the part is on the tray, and there you go. And the other part of the automation is smart forklifts. These forklifts are essentially they run on a wire guide and have several safety features, right? Like collision monitoring, collision control, which makes sure that the forklift operator is safe, pedestrians are safe, and eliminates the need for a spotter.
Path to Zero is a very significant mega project for Dow. And I think the scale of the MRO, the scale of the adjacent Diamond Center really showcase how big the program is. These are world-class buildings that will be seen for many, many decades to come, and that will be valued by the site and by the stakeholders that work in them.
Okay. And then just, one of the questions we know is on the public's mind and many of the community members is around traffic. So again, this here picture is again a picture of our site with two kind of blow up areas. We do have plans to open additional gates. We are opening them already on intermittent needed use. In particular on the Range Road 220 there on the right side. We have a couple of gates, one designated for more equipment. The other will be used more and more for people and workers coming to the site. We do anticipate that north of 5,000 construction workers, at peak construction today, we're in and around, about 700-800. So, this summer we'll ramp up, in and around the 15,000 kind of range, and the need to open some of those gates will be done as needed. The bottom drawing that's blown up there is showing some additional parking lots we've created, Lot A and Lot B. Lot A is actually off-site, just south of Highway 15 there. We plan to use busing. We are already using busing. That is really the point of this slide to just show that, you know, we have done a traffic impact assessment. We are engaging with the communities to make sure, you know, the guidance from the impact assessment from the third party is followed, and we're working with the city of Fort Saskatchewan on whatever we need to do there. And I think the last one for me to cover here is people, and then I'll turn it over to Jess. But you know, mentioned in the you know previous slide, just that it'd be north of that 5,000 construction jobs. You know, a first or a more from a Dow perspective, and Dow employees, we've hired about 160 so far. We have current job openings at careers@dow.com. Encourage folks who are interested to go and look there. We plan to hire about 200 in 2025. We've hired a little more than 50 already of that 200. Yeah, and I mean, these are good jobs in the area. You know, encourage folks who are interested to look into them. One note on you know, from a diversity perspective, we value inclusion and diversity and equity at Dow. We're very proud that our operations hiring is more than double the industry average. And we're on the engineer front, we're hiring kind of about 15% of that. So a couple little highlights that we're proud with and would like to share. I think that's it for me. I'll turn it over to Jess.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. So like Sheena mentioned, I am the Community Relations Manager at Dow. I oversee community investment. I help support public consultation on the project side of things. Volunteering for employees falls within my realm. So, you know, oftentimes you'll see me at a Dow booth at an event or out in the community. I do sit at our Fort Saskatchewan site, and I think actually Corey had shown a map. On his map, my house was actually in it, so I'm very, very, very close to the site and very much part of the community. So a few quick notes on Dow's community investment and what we support. We have 3 strategic priorities. We want to help our communities thrive. We're supporting you know, STEM and skilled trade, and then environmental sustainability. Really what guides our thought process when we're thinking about how can we best serve our community that we're part of is, you know, employee and stakeholder engagement. We want to get our employees out understanding the needs of the community and learning about the communities and First Nations that we work with. We want to create long-term commitment and sustainability. So over the course of the next 4 years, we are going to invest $10 million in our communities where we operate in Alberta. And we have some staff as well to support that. So we recently brought on a registered social worker who's actually embedded into family and community support services through the city of Fort Saskatchewan, so we can really keep our finger on the pulse of community needs. And we do this, you know, through a participatory model because, you know, about a third of our employees, our workforce on the site, live here, and so it's really, really important to us that we get to know the community and are supporting. So, you know, what's a participatory model? Really, it's just a fancy way to say we do our absolute best to listen. You see some of the partners over on the right that we've been able to learn from over the years, and we've been able to provide funding and volunteerism to. We do work with a third-party company called True Impact to help understand and measure what we're doing together. But a lot of the great feedback comes from these organizations themselves and our employees who are out and supporting them. And then ideally we can learn and grow together. So 2 of the big ones that are we announced in September on the community support, we are going to support the aquatics center that's going in at the Dow Center. We're supporting the city of Fort Saskatchewan. And you know, a big part of that is also that we're creating an endowment fund that will support the city's Access for Everyone program. If you're not familiar with that program, it's really so residents in our community who are low income can access recreation and cultural programs. And then we also announced in September that we're giving more than $2 million to the Nourishment Center to pay off their mortgage. We're going to build a community kitchen with them. And we're going to also help them expand their delivery program so our most vulnerable residents can benefit from their programming. And so a little bit of a glimpse in like what volunteering can mean for us. You saw Daniel Wallace, our lead architect, talking on the video, and he's actually helping to, advise and give free consulting to the Nourishment Center as they embark on building their community kitchen. And so we're always in search of opportunities like that where we can use our skills and expertise to help make our communities stronger. So yeah, just a few of the organizations that we've been partnering with. And most exciting really is that we have our charitable grant program is open right now. You can still submit applications until March 1st. If you have any questions about that at all, you can feel free to reach out to me. There's email on the webpage there. And yeah, if you want to see us out and about in the community, we'll be volunteering with the Robin Hood Association at their sledge hockey tournament in a couple of weeks here. We're also going to be at the local International Women's Day in Fort Saskatchewan, a few volunteers out there. So, definitely check us out. And if you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out.
All right, thanks, Jess. All right, we've got a few minutes left here for some questions. I see there's a few in the chat box, and some have been answered already by our speakers, but I'll start with one here that we've got for Dow. I know you touched on construction and traffic updates in your presentation, but there was another question in the chat just about any other further plans for that. I'm not sure if you have any more information to add on that at this time, Jess or
I can take that one. We have done a traffic impact assessment, and we work primarily with the city of Fort Saskatchewan on that, and who also consults with adjacent communities and stuff like that. And there's a bit of a back and forth in terms of what the plan recommends and what needs to be done, and we're working in collaboration with the city staff. They're great and super responsive, and on doing what they need, whether it be like synchronizations of lights, encouraging us to do busing and encouraging carpooling and things like that. So, it's those types of things. I mean, to what extent I can get into the detail, I could probably take up another half hour, but in general, there is an assessment. It's been done, its recommendations included, and we work with the city on an ongoing basis to implement the recommendations of that traffic study.
Great, thanks, Ryan. Let me just pop over to a question here that was asked about the increase to particulate matter after 2017 in Fort Saskatchewan. Nadine, I know you dropped some info there in the chat, but I was just wondering if you had anything more you'd like to add as well, or where people can find more information about these types of things.
Yeah, sure. So if people are interested in looking at our websites, like at the live data on our website, you can see the PM data there, and you can download PM data from the provincial data warehouse as well if you're interested in looking at more details in the trends, because what we're looking at today was just annual averages. So if you're interested in more detailed data analysis, like hourly averages and things like that, that can all be downloaded off the provincial website. Yeah, and if anyone has any further questions, please feel free to contact me.
Great, thank you. Okay, there's another question here for Dow regarding hiring, and if you're able to find enough tradespeople in the area to carry out the Dow project on schedule. So anything there regarding timelines for hiring and keeping the project on schedule.
Probably me again, right, Jess? Um, the short answer to that is it's an ongoing process. We do know similar builds have been done in Alberta requiring even more people back when Shell was doing some expansions and things like this. And the province, along with drawing people from other provinces, has been able to be successful. So at a very high level, like we've done things like this before in the Heartland. So that's good news. Uh, it's mainly our contracting partners who will be hiring the bulk of the tradespeople. Tradespeople at Dow will be adding about 100, give or take a bit, which is not all that many that will be actual Dow employees. So we continue to partner and work closely with our contracting partners on being able to source folks. We do see some tight spots with respect to welders in particular. So if you've got any 18, 19-year-old kids who are looking for something to do, welding is not a bad career.
Great. Thanks, Ryan. There were a few questions in the chat for Corey about various things with Nutrien, on some of your community programs, tariffs. I know you addressed them in the chat, but maybe you can touch on them live just if anyone hasn't had a chance to read all the answers.
Yeah, for sure. So, I lost it here now. Anne, I think, asked a couple questions about caring for our watersheds and seed survivors, so how to get involved with those programs. So my comment, if you care to navigate to it, it's those programs are run out of our corporate offices. So as much as I'd love to help, I really don't have any influence over it. Best way is to go to the links that I've posted in the Q&A, caring for our watersheds or seed survivor. That'll get you the contact information. That'll get that process going. And I think that was kind of the gist of it. There were some questions about tariffs. I don't know. It's a hot potato, right? And who are we chatting with here? Kevin, it was posted that the tariffs have now been postponed till April 2nd. So we keep kind of pushing out. It's a kind of a dynamic situation. And it's kind of way above my pay grade. There's people in Nutrien that are looking at, what potential impacts could be, if any. Was there anything else you wanted me to talk about? I guess, this is a little bit of a community outreach one. Murray, I'm not familiar with where you were living, Murray, but it was one of our residential neighbors that we kind of referenced a couple times. And a few years ago, after much agonizing debate, but kind of at the advice of our legal and risk and liability people, we had to restrict access to some of our green space out there. And I know some of our residential neighbors, that didn't sit very well, but what I can say is we didn't take it lightly. And as I said in my comment here, I'm actually working with the city of Fort right now to donate 6 hectares on that end of the land so that the city can operate it as a recreational area, and we don't have to worry about the whole risk and liability thing of Nutrien owning it. And we've just about got that complete. So I know it's not the big property that it used to be, but it should be less restricted access than it was before. So a little bit of a silver lining perhaps. And the city folks do have some specific standards that they'll apply to a recreational area that Nutrien really, is just kind of green space. So that's it. Did we get a new question? There's a question for you, Sheena.
Yeah, there's a question for me, which is a great segue here before we wrap up about the presentation slides. So a recording of the webinar will be made available on Life in the Heartland's website. If you signed up for the webinar or you're subscribed to our newsletter, we will be sending out the recording once it's ready to go. And we'll also be able to likely get the presenter slides put up on our webinar as well, or sorry, the slides from the webinar on our website. So yeah, stay tuned. For those, there'll be an email going out, and that way you'll be able to revisit anything if you had further information and that you wanted to take another look at. So thanks again for joining us this afternoon, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for everyone's time.
Thanks, Sheena.